let's go ahead and get to this Megyn Kelly, Ben Shapiro debate, which I watched all of and I thought was pretty interesting. Megyn didn't take like a hard position of like, I definitely think that he was killed, or I definitely think that there are other powerful people who are implicated or whatever. She was more in the like, I really don't think we know exactly what went on here. And Shapiro was in the camp of like, nope, nothing to see here. Let's move on. Let's go ahead and take a listen to this first piece, which to me was just extraordinary because Ben says this thing of basically like, yeah, I was open to it, but once we got that memo, then I was like, oh, I guess there's nothing to see here. Let's go ahead and take a listen to that.
The government admits this. The FBI established that Epstein used paid employees to repeatedly find and bring minor girls to him. Epstein worked in concert with others to obtain minor girls, not only for his own sexual gratification, but also for the sexual gratification of others. So I don't know exactly what that means, Ben, but I know that's our government admitting in court that Jeffrey Epstein worked in concert with others to obtain minor girls, not only for himself, but also for the sexual gratification of others. Who are the others? Who specifically?
Well, I mean,
that hasn't been answered. We've heard names bandied about.
One obvious answer is Ghislaine Maxwell, right, who's in prison right now for having engaged in the sexual abuse of children, right? And right. One of the other people that you just mentioned is one of the others, right? Nadia, whatever her name is. So, right. That is sort of the big open question that everyone was asking was, okay, who's that, like Stephen Hawking? Right, because he was one of the names who was mentioned, or Alan Dershowitz was one of the names who was mentioned.
Lex Wexner.
Or Ehud Barak, or Lex Wexner, right? Like all these were and again, here's my thing. I was open to every single one of these theories until the DOJ and FBI put out a memo saying we have looked at all the evidence and here's what we have come to. Right?
You were persuaded by that memo without more? I mean, like I wasn't persuaded. I'm
not persuaded by a memo. What I'm persuaded by is the fact that I have not seen evidence that they have seen. And so I'm not prepared to call Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, President Trump, J.D. Vance, and Pam Bondi. It's not the same though. Their two-page memo says no credible evidence. No credible evidence. Well, somebody's made a judgment call there, and you could drive a truck through that exception.
What'd you think of that, Em?
Well, it's exactly what we were just talking about, that if the Trump administration, let's say even the two of us and people who have covered the story seriously and skeptically for years, if the Trump administration came out and produced evidence beyond trust us and a not raw piece of video that they told us was raw and said, listen, we really did look into it and we're going to show our work here and give you reason to believe us, other than, again, literally just trust us. That's all we've gotten so far. And so to say, I take their word for it, the conspiracy theory that is years and years in the making, where you have all of this public reporting. As I was listening to it, I was just like frustrated that from like a rational perspective, there's so much evidence in the category that there's a lot more to see than what the Trump administration is telling us, which is why even non-conspiratorial people are onto the quote-unquote conspiracy bandwagon in this case, because there's mountains of public evidence reporting that this goes much it's And so from a rational perspective, it doesn't make sense to dismiss the case because you trust the word of people in power. It's weird, and I think it sounds like someone trying to get to the conclusion that nothing happened.
Yeah. And I mean, very interesting that the same people who are the most vociferously pro-Israel and banging the drums the most for war with Iran and all of these sorts of things also tend to be the ones in the hardcore, there's nothing to see with regard to Epstein camp. Also notable. Let's go ahead and take a listen to this next part, because this is potentially newsworthy. Megyn claims she actually has sources in the administration who say, no, this is a lie. This isn't what happened whatsoever. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
I have the names of the people who are making the claim that that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, and that the most gross, and sort of extreme of the conspiracy theories, just don't even call them conspiracy theories, the most sort of, extreme version of the theory is not true. I have names of the people who are claiming that. Okay, they are all in the administration. And this is my point. If other people want to make those claims that are counter to that, then they should provide evidence, or at least put their names on it so we can question them about that as well. Because otherwise we're just in the realm of pure speculation. And frankly, I just don't find that useful. I would love more useful information. This is why I'm angry at Pam Bondi. I think there should be all the useful information possible. But the same thing holds true for people who are making claims on the other side. Otherwise, I can claim that he was working for a cadre of space aliens who are blackmailing high-profile Americans in order to protect from a future invasion. And there's just about as much evidence for that as many of the claims that are being made on the other side.
All right, well, let's talk about that.
That is made requires evidence, any claim that's being made requires actual evidence. And at the very least, in the absence of evidence, the credible names of the people that I can either trust or not trust, ranging from, again, the president of the United States and vice president to the head of the FBI, the AG, and the deputy head of the FBI.
Well, I think it's very hard to say those people need to come out and put their names on these claims when they're working for an administration, this one and the one before, that didn't want that to come out. You're asking somebody to countermand the people they work for.
How am I supposed to falsify their claims? Now we're working in the realm of the unfalsifiable.
You're not, but look, Ben, you can't come to me and say, everybody I know says he killed himself. And then I respond saying, I actually have my own sources who say he didn't. And then you say, well, your sources are not valid because they won't put their names on it. Okay, who are your sources? Let's go down the list and then we'll talk about why they might be saying that.
My sources are the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, Kash Patel, the head of the FBI, Dan Bongino, the Deputy Head of the FBI, and Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. And those aren't just my sources. They're everybody's sources because they publicly came out and said this.
Okay. Trump hasn't specifically weighed in on that specific aspect of it. We've all seen the limited things that Trump has said and tweeted on this. And J.D. Vance was calling for transparency and suggesting otherwise prior to taking office. He hasn't commented on this so far, so he's not one of your sources.
He's the vice president.
You've got Kash, you've got Dan, and you've got Pam, and we've already discussed that memo in full detail. I'm talking about people behind the scenes who, prior to Trump taking office, I'm not going to get too specific, but trust me, I have high-level sources who have said they don't believe any of that. Any of that. Okay. So, and I'm not going to out them for purposes of convincing you, but you're telling me name them. No, I'm not going to. I don't have authorization.
I'm not saying
and then
no.
you say, well, I dismiss all of it because you won't name them.
Hold on, Megyn, I'm not saying you should name them. I'm saying they should name themselves because otherwise they are being complicit in one of the greatest cover-ups in the history of the American
That's easy for you to say, Ben. That's very easy for you to say.
Why is that easy for me to say? Why?
Because you'll have your job and you'll have your millions no matter what they do.
Are you kidding? Megyn, give me a break.
So, Emily, he's saying there, oh, well, if people think differently, then they should come forward, as if that's a casual and easy thing to do and, wouldn't have any potential personal consequences for them whatsoever.
We all agree with that, by the way. Yes, of course, come forward. But again, it's not the rationalist perspective to say because people won't put their name on it, it sort of undermines their credibility. It's like, if you go deep into this story, I mean, people have died, by the way. Like, people who may have had things to say have died under suspicious circumstances beyond just Jeffrey Epstein. There are a lot of, and I don't know that those add up to a conspiracy theory, but they're worth thinking about. And it's obviously true that when the stakes of something are so high, when you have the former labor secretary saying, and then not denying, they also talked about this, not denying really that he said Epstein belonged to intelligence. He was told that Epstein belonged to intelligence and to give that plea deal that Epstein got back in 2007. Well, you have that over and over again over the series of years. Then, I mean, there's nothing, again, rational about saying, okay, because these people won't come forward, then we have to just go on the evidence that people in the government are telling us to trust. I find the whole thing strange, and to me, it does seem like someone trying to get from point A to point B. Like they want to justify the end. And maybe for Ben, it's partially because he's deeply frustrated with the like weird little alt-right mouth breathers who are using this for purposes of like rank anti-Semitism, maybe. And that's an explanation as to why someone would stretch from point A to point B by just deferring to the president, who himself is implicated in all of this. I mean, Pam Bondi, who was state AG of Florida when charges, further investigations and charges could have potentially happened, as Julie K. Brown has pointed out. It is not in any way a persuasive defense.
Yeah, well, and just your point about the many questions and some other people who also died under questionable circumstances. Jean-Luc Brunel, who was a pedophile and criminal and was a close associate of Jeffrey Epstein, who allegedly sent Epstein multiple underage girls, I think 12-year-old girls, for his birthday to sexually abuse, allegedly. He also killed himself in prison, and interesting, the cameras were off there too, and it was not also recorded. So, you've got that, you've got all of the questionable circumstances surrounding Epstein's death. Oh, those cameras happened to be off. Oh, the prison guards happened to be asleep. Oh, the official autopsy says, oh, it was a hanging and it was a suicide. But when his brother had this further investigated, they said, I've never seen a suicide that would be consistent with the particular fractions of these bones in the neck. So yeah, to just pretend like none of that is real, like it's all just a conspiracy theory, it's grotesque. And the last thing I'll say here, Sagar tweeted this out yesterday, and I think this also bears mentioning. Here are the list, he says, of Israeli prime ministers linked to Epstein. Number 1, Shimon Peres introduced Ehud Barak to Epstein. Number 2, Ehud Olmert, named as an Epstein associate by USVI. Number 3, Ehud Barak, connections too vast to paraphrase. He's the one who really had the deepest Epstein connections from Israel. And Netanyahu met with JP Morgan after apparent Epstein intro. So there's just, we're just supposed to dismiss all of that. That's just a conspiracy, that there could be any there that's worthy of further investigation. And the most suspicious thing from Pam Bondi, I thought, is when she got asked about the potential intel connections, she played dumb, like, oh, I haven't really looked into that. As if she had no idea that anyone had speculated that or there were any potential ties there whatsoever. I didn't really think about that. Didn't really look into that. Okay, girl.
Didn't she say, she was like, I'll have to get back to you?
Have to get back to you. Why don't you? Please get back to us, Pam Bondi. Get back to us on that.
We're still waiting on that.
Incredible. All right, let's go ahead and move on to Congressman Ro Khanna, who introduced this amendment to try to force transparency. Unfortunately, it was voted down yesterday, but want to get all the details on that.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.